I have the KIB tank level monitor system that's in my RV. And for my galley tank, it's been wrong for the last couple of years, ever since we purchased the thing. And hopefully you'll benefit from the process and the things I went through to get it fixed. My name is Kevin, and I like to make RV videos for repair, upgrades, and of course travel videos to places that we like to camp. There are 5 things I'm going to show you today as far as fixing the RV tank sensors. I fixed mine. I'm going to show you how I did it. First thing I'm going to do is show you how I found my sensors, where they're located, and how I got access to them. Then I'm going to show you how a tank sensor is wired in your RV, how the sensor sends its signal up the line into the RV to get to your panel. Then I'm going to show you how these sensors are supposed to be installed from the factory and the difference between what I got and what it should be. Next, I'm going to show you how I fixed my sensors, how I got them moved to the new location, and how I got that problem solved. And then last, I'm going to show you the tank sensors and how they read now compared to what they were before I did the fix. If you have a KIB tank sensor system in your RV, you'll know that they're not that accurate to begin with, and you only get the 1/3, 2/3 full readings to begin with. My problem began when we would go out camping just for the weekends, and I would get 5 gallons worth of water in the tank, and it would show that it's 2/3 full. Looking at the Forest River website and downloading the spec sheet and seeing what my RVs are capable of, it shows that I have 75 gallons worth of capacity for gray water. So I needed to find out what was wrong. And one of the tools that I use to find out kind of what's wrong with the tanks or see what's going on with them is the Tank Whisper. It's a product from RV Whisper. It's not out to the public yet as of 8/20/2021. I'm currently participating in the RV Whisper Field Test 1 for testing this product. And it shows a bunch of information about the tanks. I think most manufacturers, the sensors are placed by the drain valves. So you'll get to the lowest level of the tank and you'll know where your lowest level could be. So that was my starting point. I took a little screwdriver and I poked the hole the size of a screwdriver into the bottom of the underbelly. And on my RV, I have the covering, which is the black plastic corrugated underbelly. So I popped that hole into the bottom where I kind of thought it might be, and I used my Wi-Fi endoscope to probe the area to see if I was even close. Once I discovered that in fact those sensors are in that general area, so I used a box cutter and I used it with the shortest length that I could have to cut a hole up into the underbelly, and I sliced an area. I sliced a C, the shape of a C, so I have a panel that I could pull out. And you want to be careful if you're doing that so you don't cut any existing wires, because you generally won't know if there are wires dangling in there laying on that material, or you might be cutting to a gas line, or you might even be cutting into the tank itself, and that's a bad thing. So just use caution when you do something like that. I was able to find the sensor locations for my freshwater tank, my gray water tank for the shower, the black water tank, and the galley tank. So later on I can get to those if I need to do any kind of problem solving there. So now that I have access to where my sensors are, I flipped the panel down for the galley tank, and you can see by looking at my sensors, everything looks clean in there. There's no corrosion. All the wires were tight. It seemed like it was going to be good. Well, I got a hold of the diagram, the KIB installation and wiring diagram from Ed Bender. So it shows here on the diagram, you should have 3 wires, and you've got the yellow for the 1/3 sensor, the green for the 2/3 sensor, and the orange for the full sensor. And then of course you have the white wire, which is the ground wire. The ground wire is the key to getting the readings back to the panel up on top. So how they get their information up to the top is the K101 Pigtail. That resistor pigtail has different signals. When water reaches the sensor, it makes the resistor inside there send a particular signal. And each time water reaches the next sensor, it activates the next one. So all 3 signals go up that wire at the same time. All 3 signals come out the red wire of the K101 resistor pigtail, the wiring harness, and the ring adapters, the ring connectors are on the other end, so you just screw them back onto the tank. That's a simple fix. Wrap it up or tape it up on the inside and you're good to go. My sensors weren't even close to where they're supposed to be. If you look at the diagram here, you'll see that the sensors are supposed to be 10 inches apart horizontally from the white wire. So wherever the white wire is, 10 inches horizontally, left or right, whatever your tank is set up for, that's where the first wire should be, your yellow wire, the 1/3 full sensor. The other wire should be split between 2/3 of the tank. So if you take the full tank volume, if it's 9 inches of tank, you want to divide that by 3 and space your sensors out according to how this diagram is. And that's supposed to give you the most accurate reading for how the system is designed. And you can see that mine isn't even set up close. I don't know if some guy was asleep, whatever he was doing, but he put the sensors in completely the wrong place. And that explains why our sensors were so off and why they read the wrong readings. Now, if you have a flat water tank, whatever your holding tank is, if it's a flat surface, that's great. You can just take some measurements with a ruler, line it up, and figure out where you need to put those. My tank's a little different. It was shaped funny. It has a shelf up on top and an indentation down at the bottom. It wasn't going to be that easy. I took a couple pieces of paper, taped them on to the tank, and I measured where the tank was, and I put indentations of where the tank bends and goes into place. So when I took the paper off, I can cut it, tape it together, and actually get a reading for how large this tank actually is. From that, I was able to measure down. I took the tank distance, divided it by 3, and made a mark of where I wanted to drill my new holes for the new sensors. I taped the pieces of paper back up onto the tank. And then I used I have a white paint marker. Anyway, I made those marks on there and then took the tape off. After seeing where this was going to land, my upper sensor wasn't going to land in a good spot. It was going to land on a seam in a spot that wasn't going to be maybe long-term, could create a leak or a problem with the tank physically. So now I needed to drill 2 holes into the tank for these new sensors, the MP5 sensors. They're fairly cheap. They're about $5, I think, on Amazon at the time. Following the KIB installation manual, you'll see that it says you need to drill a hole, a 3/8 inch hole, slowly, so you don't heat up and melt the plastic, making the hole misshapen, and then your sensor won't fit in properly and you could create yourself a leak and you'll have bigger problems. It turns out that my cordless drill isn't going to fit in that tiny little space. So I had to go to the store. I think I got it at Lowe's or Home Depot. And I picked up a 90-degree drill adapter that fits on the top of my cordless drill. That let me shove my drill up into the hole where it's a really tight fit. Now I still couldn't get my 3/8 inch drill into there because a 3/8 drill bit is pretty long. So I used a tapered drill bit. It was easy to drill in. The plastic is pretty soft. I just took my time, made sure it didn't wander. The small starting hole that the tapered drill bit offers allows you that pilot hole to keep the drill from wandering, and that was a good thing. I just made sure the hole was clean and free of debris from the plastic of the drilling. Next, I shoved in the MP5 sensors and tightened them up snug, not over tight, because those are a rubber grommet inside. You don't want to over tighten that thing because you'll damage the rubber, cause either a leak or a premature failure of the device. So now I have my 2 sensors installed, both the 1/3 sensor and the 2/3 sensor installed and tightened up in the tank. That was also another easy process to do. So I took my wires off the original sensors and abandoned those. I'm not going to need to use those. I don't need to remove them, plug them up, or do anything because they're of no value at this point. So once I got those wires hooked up onto the new sensors and tightened them down, I'm ready for the next step. I need to know if I have any leaks from the new holes that I drilled and plugged up. I started adding water, 1 gallon at a time. I would add a gallon of water, go press the sensor button. When I reached the 4-gallon mark, that's when the 1/3 sensor kicked in. And while 4 gallons isn't quite 1/3 of my tank, it's a lot better than it was. So I got to 13 gallons and my 2/3 sensor kicked in, and that's a good thing. That's way better than it was before. Before it kicked in at 5 gallons, and that wasn't even close. The full sensor kicks in at 27 gallons. Just like it did before, I kept filling up the tank to 33.5 gallons. That's when the tank was full. Water was at the sink level, not the top, but at the bottom. So I knew that's where the water was, and I was full. I know that my galley tank holds 33.5 gallons, and the remaining water goes to my shower and bathroom gray water tank. And I also know that I don't have any leaks because I let that go for quite a long time. So that's how I got my KIB sensors more accurate, by removing the sensors and replacing them. It was a cheap fix at $5 a piece for each sensor, and it's just the labor to get down there and do it. Now I know where all these sensors are. If I have any problem or I want to upgrade to a more sophisticated one, I can do that in the future. If you got some value out of this, you learned something new, smash that like button down below. It lets me know that this is the kind of video that you like to see, the information that might be helpful for you if you're trying to solve a problem like this. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing to see more videos like this. Thanks for watching. I appreciate the support, and we'll see you next time.